Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman's Motor Racing Team. We're still working on the Rally Mini, but this episode is all about the fuel tank. Right, in this episode, it's the fuel tank. So let me tell you a bit of a story. We went to a rally, I can't remember which one it was, but it must have obviously been pre-pandemic, and we were at scrutineering in my mate's Mark II Escort, and one of the scrutineers looked at the fuel tank and he pointed at the fuel sight glass. So you'll notice on many aluminium fuel tanks they'll have an outlet at the bottom and basically a pipe at the top and a pipe at the bottom, and in the middle is a bit of plastic hose that you can see the level of the fuel. He looked at that and he said, you know, you can't have that next year, they're banned, you know, for safety reasons. And it kind of made sense that, you know, if in an accident, if that pipe, because it may become perished or brittle or whatever, all of a sudden you're going to end up with fuel everywhere, aren't you, inside the boot or wherever you've mounted the fuel tank. And we were like, oh crap. And me in particular, because I'm building this Mini and I've already bought, second-hand admittedly, but the fuel tank, and that's got it on there. And I went, oh well. So I thought, okay, here's the opportunity. They obviously need bunging up, so I might as well get them welded up. And while I'm at it, why not fit AN fittings to the fuel tank? Might as well, hadn't I? So here you go. Here's some footage of me doing that. Now I just basically hacked off what I needed to do, drill out the holes so that I could get the AN fittings. But of course all this needed welding up, didn't it? And my mate John Cooper, who's Mark II Escort I was navigating for, he's a bit of a dab hand at the old TIG welding, and he did it for me. Now TIG welding is something that I really want to have a go at. I think at some point I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, buy myself a decent set and practice, because everybody I know who's bought a TIG welder say you need to practice. Just to end that little bit of the story, that wasn't the case. Yeah, that sight glass has not been banned. You're still allowed to have them. Nobody's ever picked it up, and that was just me taking the word of a random scrutineer at a rally. I think in the future I'm just going to wait until the Motorsport UK release any regulations. They normally give you a head start if it's a major change, and of course it all comes up in the blue book anyway, so lesson learnt, Kevin. Right, so fuel tank is now welded up. One of the other issues now is that how do we know how much fuel is in the fuel tank? Well, we don't, do we? So it needs a fuel gauge. How do we know how much fuel is in the fuel tank? Well, we don't, do we? So it needs a fuel gauge. And I went and bought myself a stack fuel gauge. And these stack ones are stepper motor. So basically you can, as the fuel sloshes around inside, I know that the fuel tank is baffled, but you know, as it sloshes around, there's always the risk that the fuel sender will send, you know, sort of random signals to your gauge. So being a stepper motor, it won't do that. And also when you turn the ignition off, the fuel gauge will stay at exactly where the fuel was. So that's really good for, you know, if you park it up in the pits, in service, sorry, your service crew can just look in and go, they know exactly how much fuel is in there. They don't have to go in, turn the ignition on and, you know, wait for the gauge to rise. How long does it take for an old classic Mini fuel gauge to go? You're full. It takes forever, doesn't it? So yeah, that's another reason for getting that. And the other reason is it's programmable. So it doesn't matter what type of sender you have, what type of fuel tank or range that you have, you can program it, which is brilliant. And I made a separate video. I'll leave I've never known how to do this. I'll leave a link here or in the description to how I actually managed to program, or how you actually program one of those stack fuel gauges. They're brilliant. So I've got a sender supplied by Cowes Marine Electrical. Thank you very much, Mr. Carr. It is very much appreciated. So that then needed mounting to the top of the fuel tank. The issue was that I had to make a retaining ring that goes inside of the fuel tank so that I could screw the sender to. Cut it in half, because obviously you can't get a hole down a hole. Doesn't work like that, does it? So yeah, and then the trick is then, you know, holding those little brackets, retaining rings in place while you screw the sender in place. The other thing that I had to do to the fuel tank was it has to have a breather, OVS. Doesn't need a return pipe because it's not fuel injection, but it's got an AN6 fitting there, so I've just put a cap on the end of that.
Lovely.
But it does need a rollover valve. At some point, this car is going to end up on its roof. I know. Let's hope it doesn't, but at some point it's probably going to end up on its roof, isn't it? And when you do that, there's always the risk that the fuel will come out through the vent on the fuel tank. You know, the contents of the fuel will then end up on the floor, catch fire, and the whole thing will burn. Hopefully not with us in it. Anyway, so what you need to do is have a rollover valve. And in this case, it is basically an AN6 to AN6 fitting, and in the middle is a ball. And so that when it turns over more than 90 degrees, I think it is, basically the ball will fall and stop the flow of air or fuel, which is great. And then obviously when you right the car, the ball then goes back in its own position, and then you can carry on. So that's a regulation that's got to be fitted. The fuel pump that I've used is a facet fuel pump. Now these ones, they are the little tiny one. Now I had this anyway. I used it in the Mini when I was auto testing it, and you know, off road and with the other engine I had, and it is more than capable for what we need. But it does have to sit at 45 degrees. I'm not really sure why it has to do that, so I've made up an aluminium bracket for it to sit at 45 degrees. It's got a pre-filter. Now the idea for that is to basically take out any, you know, big chunks of contaminant so it doesn't damage the filter. And then it goes up to the more sort of traditional fuel filter at the top to actually get out any water or impurities or little tiny things. And the reason I use that is it's not just a filter, it is a regulator. And as we all know, those Weber carburetors, they need something stupid like 2 psi. They flood and don't work very well if you put too much fuel through them, or pressure through them, sorry. So that's why I'm using that, and that is always up for an upgrade in the future. And that's the beauty of the plates. This is these plates that I've got scattered all over the car are really starting to pay dividends now, because already I'm going through the development phase. I'm sticking stuff on and going, no, don't like it. No, don't like it. But all I have to do is unbolt those plates, reconfigure how I've done it, put the plate back down, and it's done. So there's no more, I don't have to drill any additional holes in the car, which is great, especially on a rally car, because they don't like holes in cars, they really don't. So yeah, and then that runs through a bulkhead fitting. The hose runs all the way through to another bulkhead fitting at the front and onto the Weber carb. Now the hose itself is Teflon lined, so it's going to cope with the new was it E10 fuel, because that's supposed to be not very good at all, is it? So the only issue that I've got with all of it, of the new fuel that's coming very, very soon, is that the Weber apparently doesn't like solder. It rots rubber and all sorts of things. So I think we're pretty much future-proof all the way up to the Weber carb. If anyone has any advice on how to look after a Weber carb with the new fuel, please let me know in the comments below. That'd be great. But that's it. The fuel system is basically done. That's a massive milestone, isn't it? Very happy with that. All we need to do is get the electrics done, because then now I can fire up the pump and then start the car. I think that will be the next episode. So thank you very much for watching. It really is appreciated. If you'd like to help sponsor the team or this build in any way, there's loads of different ways that you can do it. We have a Patreon page. So if you like additional content, I actually make update videos every week for our sponsors. So and the patrons also see all sorts of additional footage. So if you like additional footage, go and check out the Patreon page. There's an opportunity to sponsor the navigator seat, which isn't in the car because I'm doing other stuff. There's an thank you very much to those that I've sponsored. That we've had some fantastic sponsorship for the seat so far. We're rocketing to meeting the cost of that seat. So if you'd like to get your name on that navigator seat as a sponsor, please go and check out our GoFundMe page. To be honest, the best way that you can help the team as far as YouTube's concerned is to hit that like button. Smash that like button. If you do that, it tells the algorithm that we exist. That then helps promote the videos, which also helps promote the team, which then helps us maybe get some future sponsorship. So yeah, if you can't help any other way, just smash that like button. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much. So there we go. That's the fuel system done. I'm happy with it. It looks great. It's probably one of my favorite areas of the car is the boot, bizarrely enough. So that's done. Next episode we'll tackle the electrics, and that will mean we'll be able to start the engine. Okay, thank you very much. See you next time.